She told him to take the flag down, or face eviction. That's how it all started, one afternoon, right before Memorial Day. The sun was high, the flag was swaying in the warm breeze, and Jack, a quiet Marine veteran, was standing on his porch, staring at the red notice taped to his door. In bold letters it said, "Violation, unauthorized display of symbols." He looked across the street and saw her, Karen, the HOA president, wearing sunglasses and holding her little clipboard like it was a badge of authority. She smiled that fake, polite smile and said, "We have community standards, Jack. You can't just display personal propaganda." Jack clenched his jaw. "It's the American flag," he said softly. "That's not propaganda." But she didn't even blink. "Rules are rules," she replied, her tone sharp like she'd won something. "Take it down by tonight, or I'll fine you $100 a day." He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just watched her walk away, her heels clicking on the sidewalk, clipboard pressed to her chest like a trophy. But inside, something broke. That flag wasn't just fabric to him. It was a memory. It was his brother's. It was the only thing he still saluted every morning. That night, he sat on his porch again, flag still flying above him. The street was silent, except for the faint sound of crickets and one car passing by. Then he noticed it, a shadow near his mailbox. He squinted. Someone was crouching, cutting something. When the motion light flicked on, he saw her again, Karen, scissors in hand, trying to cut the rope of his flagpole. Jack stood up, calm but cold. "You touch that flag," he said, "and I'll make sure you regret it, legally." She froze, then tried to cover it up. "I'm just enforcing HOA policy," she snapped, stepping back. But Jack had already lifted his phone, recording the whole thing. She didn't know it yet, but that little video was going to end her career, her reputation, and her power. Because Jack wasn't just any veteran, he was about to remind the entire neighborhood what real freedom looks like. Pause. He looked at the camera one last time that night and said quietly, "You can't ban honor, not in my country." By morning, the whole neighborhood had heard about it. Some whispered, some laughed, some avoided eye contact when Jack walked by, but the flag still stood, proud and high. Then came the notice. A thick envelope on his doorstep, stamped "Final Warning." Inside, Karen had written a letter dripping with fake professionalism. "Your refusal to comply with HOA standards demonstrates disrespect to this community." She even added a $1,200 fine and a threat to take legal action if the flag wasn't removed in 48 hours. Jack just sighed, folded the letter, and slipped it into his jacket. He didn't call a lawyer. He didn't post online. He went straight to the town records office. Because there was one thing Karen didn't know. Jack had purchased this property 10 years ago before the HOA even existed. He wasn't legally bound by their rules at all. That night, while checking his front camera footage, he saw another surprise: Karen and two other HOA board members standing near his fence, pointing at his house, taking pictures like they were gathering evidence. Jack hit record on his laptop screen, every word captured. "Karen, he thinks he's above the law. We'll make an example of him." Board member, "You sure he doesn't have connections?" "Karen, please. He's just some old vet with a truck and a flag." Jack leaned back, watching the video replay. A small smile crossed his face. She wanted a war, and she was about to get one. The next day, he walked to the HOA meeting, calm, silent, holding a small flash drive in his hand. The neighbors turned as he entered. Karen stood at the front like a queen at her throne, arms crossed. He didn't speak until the room was dead quiet. Then he plugged the flash drive into the screen and pressed play. Her own voice echoed through the room. "He's just some old vet with a truck and a flag." Gasps. Whispers. Someone muttered, "That's not right." Karen's face drained of color. That's out of context," she stammered. But it was too late. Every word, every threat, every second of her arrogance, now public. Jack looked straight at her and said quietly, You wanted attention, Karen. Now the whole town's watching. The clip spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, every neighbor had seen it, the veteran shamed by the HOA president who mocked his service. By evening, the town Facebook page was flooded with angry comments. Unbelievable. She disrespected a vet? Who does she think she is? Even local news picked it up, calling it the flag fight scandal. Karen tried to control the damage, sending out emails saying the video was heavily edited and misinterpreted, but nobody was buying it. People who once feared her now ignored her orders. Some even started hanging flags of their own, on porches, trucks, and lawns. Within 2 days, the street looked like a 4th of July parade. But Karen didn't back down. She doubled the fines, sent letters claiming patriotism must comply with HOA standards. That line became a meme overnight. Meanwhile, Jack stayed calm. He didn't argue or shout. Instead, he went to his shed and pulled out an old box labeled service days. Inside were his medals, photos, and a folded American flag, the one that had been draped over his brother's coffin. He decided to host a small barbecue that weekend, open to everyone. No politics, no HOA talk, just food, music, and community. Dozens showed up. Even families who'd never spoken to him came to shake his hand. Halfway through the evening, a police cruiser pulled up. The crowd went quiet. Karen stepped out, holding a document and smirking. "Mr. Miller," she said, "this gathering violates community noise rules. You're under citation." Jack just smiled. "Officer," he said calmly, "you might want to read this first." He handed the cop a folder, property exemption documents proving his house wasn't under HOA authority at all. The officer flipped through it, nodded, then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, you don't have any jurisdiction here," he said flatly. Her smirk vanished. What do you mean?" Jack looked her in the eye. "You've been trespassing, harassing, and extorting people under fake rules. And now, it's all on record." The crowd murmured. Phones came out. Cameras rolled. Karen froze, and for the first time, she realized the neighborhood wasn't afraid of her anymore. The next morning, Karen's empire began to crumble. A group of neighbors, led by a quiet schoolteacher named Marla, marched straight into the town office with a folder of complaints, all signed, all dated, all backed by video evidence. Dozens of people had clips of Karen's threats, her fake fines, even her breaking into mailboxes to check compliance. The clerk looked shocked. "You're saying she forged HOA documents?" Marla nodded. "And pocketed the fine money," Jack added calmly. That afternoon, investigators arrived. Karen tried to act innocent, offering them coffee and fake smiles, but they had already seen the footage, her yelling at veterans, destroying flags, even laughing about keeping the street clean from wannabe heroes. The officers' faces went cold. They handed her a notice, investigation pending for fraud, harassment, and impersonation of legal authority. Still, Karen wouldn't quit. She ran home, gathered a few loyal neighbors, and screamed that she was being framed by a conspiracy. Her followers looked uneasy, the power in her voice was gone. For years, people had feared her, but now, they pitied her. That night, a news van parked outside her house. A reporter knocked on Jack's door, asking for an interview. He hesitated, then said quietly, "It's not about me. It's about what happens when people forget what respect means." The clip aired that evening, Karen yelling, Jack staying calm, flags waving in the background. The headline read, "HOA President under investigation after disrespecting veteran." Within 24 hours, the video had millions of views. People across the country started sending messages of support. Veterans groups offered legal help. The HOA board dissolved itself, releasing a public apology and suspending Karen indefinitely. But Jack didn't celebrate. He just stood on his porch that night, flag gently moving in the wind, thinking of his brother. "He'd probably laugh at all this," he said softly. And as the neighborhood lights flickered on one by one, the same street that once felt divided finally stood together, not under rules, but under respect. Karen couldn't stand the humiliation. Her video was everywhere, neighbors whispering, news anchors replaying her tantrum in slow motion, comment sections calling her the HOA tyrant. She stayed inside for days, curtains shut, but anger burned inside her like a storm. Then, one night, she snapped. Around midnight, she marched toward Jack's house with a can of spray paint, muttering, "Let's see how the hero likes this." She didn't know the cameras were already watching, not just Jack's, but the entire blocks. Since the incident, the neighbors had installed shared security. As she painted "Traitor" on his fence, a light flicked on. Jack stepped out slowly, holding a flashlight. "Karen, you really want to go down like this?" he said softly. She froze, eyes wild. "You ruined my life," she shouted. Jack sighed. "You did that yourself." Then he pointed behind her. 2 squad cars were pulling up. Someone had called the police the moment the motion sensor went off. The officer stepped out, calm but firm. "Ma'am, put down the can." She screamed, "You can't arrest me, I am the HOA." One officer smirked, "Not anymore, ma'am." As they led her away, she kept shouting that she'd get her position back, but the neighborhood didn't even look out their windows this time. No one cared anymore. Power had finally lost its grip. The next morning, Jack quietly repainted his fence white. A little girl from next door brought him a cup of coffee and said, "My dad says you're the reason we can hang our flag again." Jack smiled gently. "No, sweetheart," he said, "the reason is, people stopped being afraid." After Karen's arrest, the HOA board tried to act like nothing happened. They sent out emails about community unity and moving forward, but no one was buying it. Neighbors who once stayed quiet finally started speaking up. Stories came out about threats, fines for tiny rule breaks, and years of manipulation. It turned out Karen had been running the HOA like a personal kingdom, using fear to control people. Jack didn't say much, he just kept helping others fix their yards, repaint fences, and replace the flags that had been banned. Soon, the whole neighborhood looked alive again, colorful lights, family cookouts, even veterans from nearby towns came to visit. Someone said, "Feels like we got our freedom back," and for the first time, people smiled when they said it. Then came the news. The local paper wanted to do a feature on the veteran who restored the town. Jack refused the spotlight. "This isn't about me," he said quietly. "It's about every person who got told they didn't belong on their own street." But there was one more twist coming, the truth behind why Karen hated veterans so much. And when it came out, the whole town realized this wasn't just a power trip, it was revenge. When the truth finally came out, it hit harder than anyone expected. A retired postal worker from a nearby town recognized Karen's name from an old news article. Years ago, her husband, a property developer, had been sued by a group of veterans for illegally seizing their homes during a construction deal gone bad. The case ruined his reputation and cost them everything. Since then, she'd sworn to never let veterans take over her neighborhood again. It wasn't about rules, it was personal. When the news broke, the community was stunned. The same woman who talked about order and respect had built her entire reign on hate and bitterness. The HOA dissolved within weeks. A new community council was formed, one led by the very people she tried to silence. Jack stood on his porch one last time, looking at the same flag she once banned. The breeze lifted it gently, sunlight catching the red and white stripes. A neighbor waved, and kids played on the sidewalks again. No fines, no fear, no Karen. Jack smiled softly and said, "Funny how people like her think they run America, until America reminds them who it really belongs to." Months passed, and the neighborhood finally felt alive again. The laughter of kids replaced Karen's constant shouting, and porches once bare now glowed with flags, flowers, and pride. Jack became somewhat of a local hero, not because he fought back with anger, but because he fought back with truth. News outlets called it the neighborhood that took its freedom back, and people from nearby towns came just to see the place that stood up to tyranny in a cul-de-sac. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Jack sat with his daughter on the porch. She looked up at the flag and said, "Dad, are we really free now?" He smiled, his eyes soft but proud. "Yeah, sweetheart, real freedom isn't about living without rules, it's about living without fear." Behind them, a soft breeze carried the faint hum of neighbors talking, laughing, and living again. The same land that once divided them now united them. And though Karen had vanished, her story stayed, a reminder that power built on control always collapses, but truth? Truth always flies highest, right beside the flag. Collision. End of story. The HOA Karen who banned veterans, the rule that backfired.